Hi, welcome to another episode of It's Just Racing, hosted by Jim and Jim. I'm Jim.
And I'm Jim.
And we're here to talk about racing. Going to start off this week with the Nascar Craftsman Truck Series. They were at the Tricky Triangle in Pocono, Pennsylvania. Lane Riggs was on the pole, but as usual, Corey Heim jumped to the lead before the end of the first lap and led the entire whole stage. Led the whole stage until they pitted to flip the stage. I don't remember them doing that on ovals. Is this a new thing, or is it something that's been going on?
I try not to pay attention to the stages because they frustrate me to start with, so who knows?
I was just surprised. So they started pitting to flip the stage, and Cody Dennison cut a right front tire and slammed the wall, bringing out the caution. So Lane Riggs got the stage win. Corey Heim got the lead to start stage 2 and won the caution-free stage. Now that's racing. Heim continued to lead in stage 3 until Ben Rhodes got together with Grant Enfinger, and chaos ensued involving 6 trucks. On the restart, Jake Garcia spun, so nothing happened there. Corey Heim cut a tire under caution and had to pit before the green. So Carson Hocevar thought that, hey, I get to move up into Corey Heim's spot because I'm third. That's not how it works. Can't do that, can you? So he ended up with a drive-through penalty, and Lane Riggs, who was the second best truck out there, and with Corey Heim out, Lane Riggs won, as he should have. So, good job, Lane Riggs.
I thought the Hocevar mistake was kind of funny. He was upset on the radio, and the announcers, they're just like, well, you can be upset all you want, but you're the one who didn't know the rules. So, there's not sure why he thought that he all of a sudden got to be the leader, but he jumped the start he was a full car length ahead of Riggs before they got to the start line. So
from third to too far ahead in first, even if he should have been in first. All right, moving on to the Xfinity Series at Pocono. Chase Elliott dropped out of the Xfinity Series, grabbed the pole, and grabbed the early lead. There was a caution on lap 4 for a single car spin. They tried to restart, but Justin Bonsignor blew his engine. So then they tried to restart again, and went green for a little while. Chase Elliott kept the lead until they started pitting to flip the stage again. I don't recall this on ovals. Or maybe it's because it's a triangle. I don't know.
Or maybe NASCAR is just kind of goofy for throwing all the stage cautions and forcing them to do this weird strategy.
People giving up points and people getting points that didn't earn the points, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, so Chase Elliott pitted along with a bunch of other people. Gave the stage win to Brandon Jones. On the restart, Harrison Burton got the lead, but was quickly overtaken by Justin Allgaier. But that didn't matter, because there was a multi-car wreck 2 laps in, when Brandon Jones ran out of talent and took out a bunch of the midfield runners, including, of course, my pick for Rookie of the Year, William Sawalich. He's got to be having the worst rookie year ever.
He's got to be thinking it can only get better, and then it just doesn't.
He's like, I want Arca back. So, on the restart, Justin Allgaier grabbed the lead. Led till a caution came out for a single car spin with 8 to go. And hey, close enough. Let's all pit to flip the stage. The first one to not pit to flip the stage was your Rookie of the Year, Connor Zilich, who took the lead on the restart and won stage 2. Zilich grabbed the lead and held on to it to restart stage 3 until the green flag pit cycles began with about 33 laps to go. There was a single car spin in the middle of the cycle, which brought out the yellow. They restarted with 25 to go. Chase Elliott had the lead. About 2 laps. Then we had another single car spin. Then they drove around for a while under caution. Restart with 17 to go. Nick Sanchez got loose. Sheldon Creed pounded the wall trying to avoid him. So another caution. Drove around for a while under yellow. Restart on lap 13. 13 to go. Jesse Love got the lead from third as Allgaier and Elliott were too busy, banging into each other, and they both drifted up track, and Jesse Love got it. But that didn't matter because there was a yellow for a single car spin a couple laps later. I see a trend, yellows for single car spins. Restarted with 6 to go. Jesse Love got the lead. Connor Zilic stayed right on his bumper. Zilic passed him with 4 to go and won his first ever triangle race.
I know everybody was saying it was an oval race, and I thought that was funny because it was quite clearly a triangle.
It was. Where is turn 4?
I've never seen it.
No. So Zilic still has not won an oval, but he's won on road courses and he's won on triangles. And this is the last time I'm going to complain about stages. Well, not stages themselves because they're stupid, but they wasted 6 laps every stage. The stage break would happen at lap 20, and they wouldn't restart until lap 27.
It's a big track.
It's stupid.
It's what, 2.5 miles?
It's like 15% of the race was planned yellow flags. It was just silly. I'm tired of it, but there's nothing I can do because I'm just a guy.
Well, speaking of silly, but in a different way, I've got a race to report on, another 24-hour race from the Nürburgring over in Germany. And I say it's silly because you got to be kind of crazy to race this one. I mean, the Nürburgring, it was the full course, so it's like 16 miles. I know the Kevin Estre was on pole in the Porsche 911.
Now, he raced last week in the 24-hour race, right?
He did.
In
He nearly
Milan?
got the win there.
So 2 24-hour races in a span of 7 days?
And who knows, he might be doing one more. I know there's the 24 hours of Spa this week. I don't know if he's entered or not.
That's just kind of silly, too. I couldn't imagine doing that twice in a row.
No, he was on pole position for Manthe Racing and the Porsche 911, which is easy to remember because they're number 911 as well. The pole time was like 8 minutes and 10 seconds. It's a big track.
That's a lap.
There were 141 cars entered. I know you like lots of cars.
Lots of cars is good, especially when you're on an 8-mile long track.
It's like 15, almost twice.
Okay, sorry, 15 miles. That's right.
Le Mans was 8
minutes.
miles.
8 minutes.
Yep. So the different classes they've got, GT3 is the fastest. Then there's some GT4s. Your favorite, the TCRs.
Woohoo, Hyundai.
And there's a couple other classes I don't really care to know what they are. They're just kind of there to get lapped, and I don't know much about them.
The minivans?
I don't think they're wearing minivans.
No.
But who knows? There could have been. I watched some in-car camera footage. They had like 20 different in-car cameras live on YouTube, so that was really nice because you can just tap in whatever car you wanted. TV coverage, I don't know if there was any. But I was watching Kevin Estre drive that Porsche around there. They were leading almost the whole race, that car was. It was pretty fast. The nighttime hours there, I would not want to drive in the night at the Nürburgring because there are no lights anywhere. I mean, I don't even remember all the corners, and I watch races there all the time. And then you got all those slower cars that you're coming up on blind turns. You're going flat out. So it takes a lot of skill and a lot of nerve to even just get in the car there.
And some insanity.
Yeah, you always need some of that. There was a red flag, kind of unusual. They red flagged the race for like 2 hours because they lost all power in the pit lane. So they had to wait for the electricity to turn back on. And I mean, obviously that was a safety thing, and with team communication, when the laps are that long, you make it 5 or 6 laps on a fuel stint. So you really need to communicate with your driver and know what's going on for those 8 minutes and 10 seconds. But once they got it started again, the Porsche was still leading. One thing I found interesting, I don't know what series they were running with or if it's a standalone event, but they had minimum pit stop times, which I know some series do to make it a little less competitive in the pits and have the action stay on the track. So it was 107 seconds was the minimum pit stop. So that's a long pit stop. It's almost 2 minutes. But so I thought that was pretty interesting. 16 hours in, you had a good battle for the lead. BMW was putting some pressure on the Porsche, and Kevin Estre, he messed up. He made a mistake. He went for a gap that did not exist, lapping one of the GT4s. It was an Aston Martin, and he got into the right rear of the Aston, spun it. It went into the wall. It flipped, came back across the track, barely avoided the second place BMW, who had to jump over the curb, got a bunch of airtime, was in the grass. Luckily, he was able to save it. Unfortunately, the Aston was out as it landed on the roof, which is never good to see.
Got to keep it shiny side up.
But that was really the defining moment of the race, because the Porsche had led, besides the pit cycles, just about every lap of that race, and they were given a 100-second penalty for that incident responsibility, which I think that's a fair penalty because it was pretty bad. We saw a few different in-cars, and yeah, he had no business going for that gap.
Yeah, he basically tried to pass him in the grass, didn't he?
Yeah. Yes, it was a bad move, and the penalty was deserved. But what that meant was that the BMW could back off a little. They didn't really have to push the issue. So in the end, the Porsche finished first on the track by about 23 seconds. But after that penalty, the BMW, driven by Augusto Farfus, Raffaele Marciello, Jesse Krohn, and Kelvin Vanderlinde, was your winner. And everyone else, third place down, was all a lap down. There were a couple Lamborghinis who were doing well, but they both had problems drive shaft braking. So one of them retired. One was able to fix it, but ended up a lap or two down. So it was really just those two cars at the top, and everybody else was really far behind.
All right. Now, I'm going to do an IndyCar race at a road course because somebody, Jim over here, he was doing a bicycle race at the time of the IndyCar race. So he was gone, getting very hot and sweaty, riding for 50 miles on his bike. So, good job. So it just made more work for me. IndyCar at Road America. We weren't there.
You probably would have fallen asleep.
I would have fallen asleep because it was too hot. Rookie Louis Foster was on the pole. David Malukas hit Pato O'Ward and put himself into the gravel. It's kind of funny. He drove into Pato and then he just put himself in the gravel on the first lap. Bringing out a caution. That started different strategies right away. Scott Dixon pitted on lap 2 there under caution to change onto the soft tires and top off fuel. On the restart, Scott McLaughlin grabbed the lead until Robert Schwartzman locked up the brakes in Canada corner and put himself into the tire wall on lap 5. McLaughlin still led after the restart until another incident on lap 11, with Stingray Robb locking up and going into the wall before entry of turn 5. After Marcus Armstrong seemed to slow a little early for turn 5. I don't know if Stingray overreacted or there was something we didn't see, because Armstrong slowed and then Stingray was like locked up and turning to the right, like he thought he was closing at him too fast, and pretty much drove himself into the wall, tore everything off the right side of the car, and then went through the tire barriers. It was a rough start to the race. There were 4 green flag laps and had more after that lap 11 incident. Most drivers pitted. There was a restart on lap 13. Scott Dixon had the lead, but had to give it up to pit on lap 22 as he was on that alternate fuel strategy after pitting on lap 2. But then Connor Daly got stuck in the gravel on the next lap, so Dixon just could have lasted one more lap. That might have worked out. Restart, there's a great battle between Christian Lundgaard and Kyle Kirkwood. Till Lundgaard finally wrestled away the top spot and led until he had to pit. A lap before Joseph Newgarden got wide coming around the last turn. Looks like he dipped his left rear into the grass and spun himself across the track and into the tire wall with 25 to go.
You know, I was back at this point and I saw this, and I gotta say, I I think it was just a mistake on your buddy Joseph's part.
100%.
I don't know that he got on the grass. His car just looked like it was unsettled on the curb, and he stayed in it when he should have lifted, and that just sent him into the wall.
I don't know. I thought he dipped his left rear, but you could be right. I didn't watch replays, so we'll go with you, Joe. You messed up, buddy. All right, as Junior would say, there was some argy-bargy on the restart as Colton Herta got into Lundgaard, spun him, and Kirkwood had to go off-roading to avoid it.
Now, I've got something to say about this, because I think there should have been a penalty for Herta. It was into Canada corner. Lundgaard had been on a mission because the cautions had messed up his fuel strategy. He was the fastest car, and he was going to win the race, but he was stuck back in, it was like 9th or 10th at the time. And he was passing Herta on the outside of Canada corner, which is that hard braking zone right-hander. He was ahead. There was overlap. He gave Herta racing room on the inside, but he was ahead at the apex, and Herta just took the corner like he wasn't there, pushed him wide, and that's why he spun. And there was no action taken, and I think there should have been a penalty for Colton Herta.
This isn't Formula One. We don't penalize everybody just for farting the wrong smells.
Well, Christian Lundgaard was penalized after that incident for an incident that had happened the previous lap. It was turn 7, I believe. He spun somebody, drove into the back of him and spun him. I forget who. But it was to pass for 10th to get behind Herta. So they do give out penalties for incidents, but I guess not to Colton Herta. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Well, they all kept going, so there was no yellow flag. Scott Dixon had the lead, and fuel strategies started to play out. 5 different drivers led over the next 10 laps as they all made their final pit stops. Or do they make their final pit stops? Scott Dixon was leading, with Alex Palou right behind him. Oh no, Alex Palou, doesn't that guy win every race?
Except for the ones Kyle Kirkwood wins.
True. 2 laps to go. Scott Dixon had to pit. Needed fuel. Which gave the lead and eventually the win to Alex Palou, his 6th win of the year. There's still only been 2 winners in IndyCar, all of them Honda powered. Palou and Kirkwood are the only 2 guys who've won. Felix Rosenqvist was 2nd, and Santino Ferrucci, I love that guy. He finished 3rd. Interesting, they showed after the race had ended, 6 cars were so close that they ran out of fuel between the checkered flag and turn 1. There were just cars littered all about.
And that's less than half a mile, so that's real close. You're running on fumes up the hill.
It was interesting, as usual. Road America was great racing. Unfortunately, we missed it this year, but it was so Junior over here could go abuse his body by racing 50 miles on the bike.
Another big race this weekend was the 6 Hours of Watkins Glen, big IMSA race. He had more than 50 cars there. It's good car count. I wasn't able to see this race in real time either. I watched the highlight video, and it looked like it was pretty chaotic. So I'm not going to be able to cover every caution, every spin, because there were a lot of them. It was a wet start. That's partially what caused that. It was the Meyershank Acura of Renger van de Zander who started on pole position, looking to defend his recent win in Detroit. And yeah, the wet start, it always complicates things in IMSA because the prototypes are so much faster than the GTs, but they don't handle well in the wet at all. The GTs have ABS, the prototypes do not. So in the braking zones, the GTs are a lot better. And that causes chaos when you're lapping people, and then all of a sudden they come back in the corner and pass you back. So I always enjoy a nice IMSA wet race. You need one a year, and this was the first rain we had seen this year. the rain got heavier, like a half hour in. People started, spinning into walls, going in the grass. There was a caution. I don't know exactly for what, but there were 4 cars off track and a bunch of debris all over it. So for some combination of that, they threw a caution. There was a big crash a little after the restart. The LMP2, driven by Rodrigo Salas, he got spun around in a bad spot. It was kind of unsighted. There was a wall, and then it was on the exit of the turn, so it was a left hand, and you couldn't really see him till it was almost too late. And with all the traffic, there was another LMP2 that just ran right into him, head-on crash. They talked to the guy afterwards, and he never even saw it coming. So that's never fun when you're facing the wrong way and then somebody hits you.
It's not.
Have you ever done that?
I have, yes, and I was actually sideways at a complete stop, and then somebody hit me. So
I remember watching that.
That was not painful. Fun. It was extremely painful. That's the first time that I ever got out of the car and then laid down on the track because I couldn't breathe.
Well, the guy who ran into the one who was spun around was 57 years old, so just imagine that.
I couldn't imagine doing it now or 7 years from now.
But yeah, so a bunch of GT cars got into each other, checking up to avoid that. I don't think any of them had real damage because they were going so slow at that point. But it was pretty chaotic. That was obviously another caution. There was a bunch of debris all over the track. After that, there were a few more debris cautions, just carbon fiber pieces falling off everywhere. Who knows what cars or when. Just in general, I would not want to be one of the mechanics having to fix these cars after a wet race. So, good luck to them. They've got a couple weeks off at least. The FAF Lamborghini, they had been on pole position in GT Pro, and they brought out a caution. Don't really know what happened, if he just hit the brakes too late, or if there's a problem with the car, but he went straight on, through a gravel trap and into a wall. So that's less than ideal.
They haven't been doing so great since they left Porsche, have they?
No, they haven't. They had the year with McLaren, and that didn't go well. Another Lamborghini. Should have stayed the plaid Porsche.
Yeah.
But that caution was able to give the hypercar Lamborghini the overall lead, which is not something I ever thought I would say, because that car in the dry is really slow. It's way off the pace. But in the wet, I don't know if it's the car, like the setup they've got, or the drivers, because Romain Grosjean and Daniel Kvyat, both former Formula One drivers, but some combination of the setup and the drivers, they do really well in the wet, and they took the lead, held on to it for like a half hour until it dried out. But just one note about that Lamborghini, because I saw an interview with Grosjean after he got out of the car, and he looked like he was in his 50s because he was just exhausted. And he said the car, there's no spot for a water bottle. There's no hose to blow air on the driver. There's no cooling systems at all. And so I just want to say, Lamborghini,
what the hell?
Get your man a water bottle. If Romain Grosjean is telling you the car is too hot, the guy was in a car that was on fire for 28 seconds, 5 years ago. If he says the car's too hot, get him a water bottle.
That's messed up. All the money they put into these things, you can't figure out a drinking system.
Anyways, there was a pretty crazy GT Pro battle. The top 6, on the run up to the chicane, up the hill, it looked like we were watching NASCAR at Talladega. They were 3 wide and two rows deep, so you had 6 cars all right there. Luckily, nothing happened. They all,
so it's not like watching NASCAR.
No, for a second you thought it might be, but then luckily they remembered what series they were in. After that, there was an incident where a Mercedes GT car was driving like he was, a minivan on the highway or something, because he just cut off the Mustang sampling prototype who was staying on the right side, going to pass everyone. Mercedes just pulls out in front of him and pit maneuvers himself over the nose of that Mustang sampling car, wrecks them both out. So that was a big crash. Another caution for that. So use your mirrors, Mercedes. That is a thing, just to harken back to the Nürburgring for a second. I noticed the cars had turn signals, and the slower cars were using them to say where they were going.
That was pretty cool. When you showed me that. I liked that.
So maybe Mercedes invest in some turn signals, or use your mirrors, which are already there. Anyways, after that, on the restart, Philippe Albuquerque in the Wayne Taylor. Is it a Cadillac or an Acura? I don't know. They switch so much. Whatever car Wayne Taylor drives or has his team drive. I made a nice pass for the lead. I think it is a Cadillac now. Yeah. But then the 25 BMW hypercar had a crash all by himself. I just spun it around, a little too much gas, and broke the rear wing, and that wasn't good. Had to replace that. Another caution for an Aston Martin in the wall. I don't know how they got there. They probably don't know either. At this point, you had an hour and 20 minutes left, and the championship leading Porsche, the Porsche Penske car, driven by Nick Tandy, which has been almost flawless to this point in the season, just destroyed the car. Exited turn one, it was all by himself, just took too much curb on that left side, and the car snapped to the right and went into the wall, and the car was just junk. Nobody even near him, so I'm not sure if the curb was a little slippery, if the car was unsettled, but something happened, and then nothing happened after that for the Porsche. So that could help close up the championship a little, but you don't like to see it happen that way. Once they got going green again, there was about an hour to go, and you got the feeling it was going to be a fuel mileage race. And so the Whelen Cadillac, the 31, led from one of the Meyer-Shank cars. At this point, it was a BMW Paul Miller Racing 1-2 in GT Pro. Vassar Sullivan, one of their Lexus cars, was leading in GTM. And there was some good racing between the United Autosport and the AO Racing. That's Spike, the LMP2 cars for the class lead. That was Paul DeResta and Dane Cameron. They were going back and forth. Clean, respectful racing, but really tough at this point. So LMP2s don't often have a lot of good racing, but this was a good race for them. There was a lot of argy-bargy.
Hey, you said it. That's the second time argy-bargy was said in this recording.
In GT Pro, there was argy-bargy. Second place all the way through fifth, with like a half hour to go. It was Rexy, it was one of the Corvettes, and it was both Mustangs. They were all just banging into each other like it was Martinsville or something. So that was a little unexpected. And you remember that happened at the last race in Detroit. So, and also between the Corvette and Rexy. So I don't know if they're having a little bit of an issue there. I don't know. Either way, neither of them was in the lead, so it's kind of pointless wrecking each other instead of catching the leader. But
that's always good to see when you're the leader, though.
Yeah, looking in your mirror, if you see your competition doing that, you're feeling pretty good about your lead. There was another caution, and we went green with 3 minutes to go in the race. And it really was a fuel mileage race. The Whelen Cadillac of Earl Bamber had to pit from the lead on the white flag lap. Didn't have enough gas to make it the 3 miles around the track. And so that gave the lead and the win to the number 60 Meyer-Shank car of Tom Blomqvist and Colin Brown, who got the win. So now both Meyer-Shank cars have won a race this year. There's a little more fuel mileage in the GT Amateur division. That Lexus for Vassar Sullivan, they ran out of gas on the last lap with like 3 turns to go. They were almost there, and just not enough. And that gave the win to the number 27, the Aston Martin. That's the Heart of Racing team. The United Autosport LMP2 hung on for the win in LMP2. It was a real close finish. Top 5 were separated by 2.1 seconds.
Wow. Yeah,
it was a good finish in LMP2. And the number 48, Paul Miller BMW, got the GT Pro win. So IMSA's off for a couple weeks so they can fix all of the cars, because They need a lot of work after this one.
They wrecked everything. All right, moving on to the NASCAR Cup, the empty cup, the unsponsored Cup Series. Also at Pocono. Denny Hamlin on the pole and led every lap to win stage 1. Wow, this show would be a lot quicker if that happened more often, wouldn't it?
If there weren't stages, I don't know what we'd talk about.
A few drivers pitted to try to flip the stage, but none of the leaders did. Keselowski grabbed the lead. Brad. It's nice to see him doing good. I don't mind the Brad. He got the lead to start stage 2 until Riley Herbst blew a right front tire into the wall. Keselowski led the restart and held on to that top spot until Bubba Wallace blew his right front tire and hit the wall. That's two 2311 cars blowing right fronts and hitting the wall. So they showed the replay, and you could actually see Bubba's brake rotor just exploded, went through the wheel, and that's what caused it. So in a fit of intelligence, they said, well, we have one car left, and we probably shouldn't destroy this one too. So they pulled Tyler Reddick into the pits, and they changed some right front brake parts so that he would not suffer the same fate of his teammates. Lost a couple laps doing it, but they did not destroy the car, so that made sense.
You know, losing a couple laps is better than being in the wall and out. So.
It is, that's for sure. So then, Brad, huge mistake by the RFK team. They called Brad Keselowski into the pits under caution, but the pits weren't open yet. Yeah, so he had to restart at the tail. Poor Brad. He actually has the lead and then he loses it due to a stupid mistake like that. Most guys pitted. Joey Logano did not. And he led briefly before being passed by Alex Bowman, who led until we had a debris caution for 18 to go on the stage. They never showed any debris. I don't know if it was one of those phantom cautions they like to throw sometimes, or if it was part of Bubba Wallace's brake rotor was seen. I don't know. Carson Hocevar got the lead on the restart, legally, not like in the truck race. But Chase Briscoe drove on by. And we have another caution, this time for a couple guys battling for 30th. Don't even remember who it was because they were irrelevant in the race. Briscoe led the restart and won stage 2. Chase Briscoe also led stage 3 all the way until the green flag pit cycle. Unfortunately, during that pit cycle, there was a caution for a single car spin. We have a lot of those this weekend, which is odd with it being such a long track. You'd think people could drive. I've never driven Pocono though, so I should really not judge people for their driving abilities. Chase Briscoe led the restart. He was saving fuel really, really, really bad.
Yeah, on that last pit stop, he was like 2 seconds quicker than Denny Hamlin, and that was because he did not get enough fuel in the tank.
That was it was touch and go there. He was saving and Denny was coming. Something with the aero package. I am amazed that Denny Hamlin couldn't get by him because he was just there, but the gap stayed at like a half a second.
Yeah, it was like a DRS train put in NASCAR.
It was odd because Briscoe's off the gas in every turn, and his crew chief's yelling at him, "No, we need you to save more. We need you to save more." So he's just off the gas the whole time, and Hamlin never. I don't think he ever even tried to pass him. He just stayed behind him.
He was never close enough to try anything.
It was weird. But that gave young Mr. Chase Briscoe his first win of the year. So he's in the playoffs now. It's also his first win with Joe Gibbs Racing. Playoffs. Can we just say a little something about the playoffs?
Oh, please.
I am so rooting for all these guys in 30th place to win the next races, so it'll totally break the playoff system, and perhaps we can go back to a real point system like we had when you were just a little puppy.
I mean, I was like 12 years old when they changed it, but...
Would you like to see a picture of yourself when you were 12?
No.
Okay. You were quite a cute little boy.
Okay, well, NASCAR, what's not cute is your point system because it sucks, and the playoffs are dumb, and playoffs are for basketball or football. This is racing.
And even though he has a win, Shane Van Gisbergen is still 30th in actual points.
That's why I think we were both cheering for Brad Keselowski to win because he's like 32nd.
Yeah, I wanted Brad to win just because Brad hasn't won in a long time, and he's an old guy. I'm an old guy, so I always root for the old people. But yes, absolutely, break the system, please. We need another Matt Kenseth-style championship. 0 wins, but you perform every single week, and that's why it's called a season. So, next week, I think we're done, right?
Yeah, that's all.
Next week, the Empty Cup and Xfinity are Atlanta. You may not know that because Atlanta sold the naming rights, and it's like Echo Park Raceway or something now. I heard it, and I was like, wait a second. I think that's where the Legends Summer Shootout is, and I had to look it up. But yeah, it's Atlanta. So Cup and Xfinity are at Atlanta. The Craftsman Truck Series is going to be at Lime Rock. That's
Your
very
favorite
exciting.
road course.
I love that track. I like to see the trucks. And we are going to have at least one guest driver, right?
Yeah, Rodney Sandstorm.
Rodney Sandstorm making his first NASCAR truck race of the year.
Now that would be Jordan Taylor from the IMSA series under his alter ego.
And you guys in Formula One are in Austria, right?
Yeah. Now I do just have a couple of predictions. One for the truck series. I'm predicting a Connor Mozak surprise win.
I don't think that'll be a surprise. Well, for those who know Connor Mozak. So I guess it will be a surprise because a lot of people don't know Connor Mozak. We watched Connor Mozak race when he was a youngster. Well, he still is a youngster, but even youngsterier.
No, he's got a lot of Trans Am experience, and they race at Lime Rock a lot. So I think he's going to have the experience factor, and that's going to propel him to victory at Lime Rock. And also Formula One. I think you already said you think Max is going to win at Red Bull's home race.
I would like Max to win at his home race, yeah.
I think Oscar Piastri is gonna bounce back and he's gonna win and he's gonna just shut Lando out of this championship.
I think Lando's already out of the championship in reality.
Well, but I think the difference is Lando's put himself out of the championship
True.
at this point, and I think Oscar's going to shut the door and say it's mine now.
All right. Is he going to lock it or is he just going to shut it?
He's going to shut it, and then Lando, instead of going around the door or opening it, he'll run into the back of it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening /watching, and we will see you next week.